I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in a typical Reformed Jewish American family. My family did not promote Jewish pride or encourage me to learn about our rich history or our contributions to the world, contributions such as the belief in one God and a system of ethics. Until I was around 15, I had no want, need, or desire to be Jewish. I remember the 70s when Yasser Arafat was hijacking and blowing up airplanes. I blamed the Jews, and I felt nothing but shame. But then came the 80s. By then I was a young teenager, discovering life's truths and life's lies. Also in the 80s, Jew haters in my hometown came out of the woodwork. Neo-Nazis walked around spreading their propaganda. Even worse, they attacked religious Jewish children coming home from school, holding them down, cutting off their payas, ripping away the symbol of their very Jewishness. The seniors who walked to the kosher deli to get the food for Passover with their Social Security money got beaten up and robbed regularly. Synagogues were sprayed with swastikas and windows were broken. That's when I decided to find out why the world found it so easy to accuse, persecute, and murder Jews. I still can only speculate. I have never found a reasonable answer to this question, nor do I care any longer. One is that we will never keep silent again. Never again. I joined study groups and eventually Beitar, a group of young Jews dedicated to learning about our history and our heroes, as well as protecting our fellows. We set up patrols with the help of the police, walking the streets of our neighborhood, guarding our synagogues and protecting our people and their property. Today, our past antagonists have learned we are not there to be assaulted but respected. The streets there are quiet and friendly. Jews and Jewish institutions go virtually unharmed. My view at that point became in a certain way uncompromising, no surrender, no retreat. The world has proved generation after generation, for over 3,000 years, that it has no tolerance for the Jewish people in its midst. So we must take care of ourselves and each other. For 1,635 years before the Common Era, Hebrews settled in Zion, Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, outliving and outlasting all who came to destroy us. The Romans, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, and the Philistines. The Philistines who offered false promises of acceptance and of coexistence. If the Jews would only give up the idea of Zionism and agree to exile from their land. Yes, Zionism. This is not a new concept. As far back as Roman exile, Jews have been praying for the return to the land that was theirs. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. But instead, Jews fought, died, and most were dispersed. But were forever imbued with the hope of returning to Israel instead of the slavery, exile, and pogroms that became their lot. That was then, and this is today, two people, one land. As far back as 1914, when Ben-Gurion petitioned the Ottoman regime to allow a Jewish fighting force to help oust the British in return for living under minority status safely as Jews. This and many other requests for peaceful coexistence had been answered with cries of jihad and the threat of pushing the Jews into the sea. Partition, the Peel Plan, Madrid, Oslo, Wye, Camp David, Mitchell, Zinni, Tenon, Burns, Saudi, the Roadmap. These are all variations of the same plan, all failed. Failed because Arabs of the region had continuously claimed it is not enough and responded with terror and war. In 1967, when the Israeli Defense Force liberated the Arabs of Judea and Samaria from 19 years of neglectful Jordanian oppression and intern camps, Israelis built them hospitals and schools, something they had never been given by any Arab nation. The standard of living in these territories skyrocketed for the newly named Palestinians, as well as infant birth rate. The GNP went from $165 in 1968 to $1,715 by 1991. Life expectancy went from 48 years old in 1968 to 72 by the year 2000. Fast forward to Oslo, Israelis, tired of 70-plus years of fighting for their right to exist, willing to give up more of their homeland for promises of not only peace, but acceptance of a democratic Jewish state living amidst dictatorial, oppressive Arab regimes. Arab regimes that have repeatedly rejected the Jewish state up to and including today. Understand my belief that Jordan, already 75% Palestinian Arab, is the true home to the Arabs of the region, as set forth by partition. Remember, Judea and Samaria were taken from the Jews by the British and awarded to the Arab Hashemite kingdom as a consolation prize for not getting the big prize, Baghdad. Even I, with that historically factual belief, was willing with much trepidation to support the concept of a two-state solution within the borders of Israel. I figured that one last chance, if it really meant peace, it would be worth it. I assumed that economic prosperity and controlling one's destiny would be enough to convince the Arabs that peace was worth a negotiated agreement wherein both parties give up something. Yet since Oslo, over 1,200 Jews have been murdered, and the Palestinian Arabs still refuse to disarm these cowardly terrorists. I also believe that if the Arabs continue their self-destructive and violent behavior towards the Jews, the entire world would see it, and reality would have to take hold. Yet to this day, 10 years later, the Arabs continue to support a terrorist leader, Arafat, who is stealing their money and their dignity, and any hope they may have of living in peace and prosperity. In fact, he has enriched himself at his people's expense, recently having been identified as one of the richest despots in the world, with Forbes magazine putting his personal wealth at over $300 million and $1.6 billion in world aid unaccounted for. The obstacles to peace are obvious to anyone who cares to see the truth. While another generation of Arab children are taught to hate and to kill, while Yasser Arafat calls on his own people to strap explosives on themselves in order to murder as many Jewish women, men, and children as possible to realize their promise of glory. Meanwhile, as Arabs continue to see Israel as occupied Arab land, and while the Arabs of the region refuse to disarm and arrest the terrorists, and while Jewish blood continues to spill for the imagined fulfillment of political gain, this way there will be no peace. My vision for the future, Nostradamus, I am not. I await the day when it is as safe for a Jew to walk the streets of Judea and Samaria as it is for a Muslim to walk the streets of Tel Aviv today. I await the day when sending our children on a bus is no longer a game of Russian roulette. I await the day when Jewish families no longer have to keep one parent at home so as to not orphan our children. But I don't know when this day will come. I await the day when a Jewish or a Christian minority can live in an Arab land as equal participants in the life of the state as 1.5 million Arabs live in Israel today. I await the day when women in Arab lands are not killed because their brothers and fathers feel they have been disgraced when their wives and sisters have been raped against their will. I await the day when 90% of Arab nations do not have a declared state of war with Israel. I await the day when there is as much worldwide condemnation of the murder of Jews as there is to the threat of, the threat of the removal of Arafat, a man who has been murdering and terrorizing the world for over 30 years while demeaning his own people. I await for the day when Arabs of the region step up, accept responsibility for themselves and their leaders, and say enough is enough. Stop making heroes out of those who kill Jews as well as themselves. To stop cheering and celebrating when Israelis and Americans are murdered. Have we forgotten the celebrations on the streets of Arab towns in the wake of 9/11? In the meantime, I will do my best to not allow history to be rewritten, or for the Jews to be vilified and intimidated. I will also hope and pray that the government of Israel will stop worrying about world opinion and do the most important job a government has: protect its people against an aggressor who openly wishes its people only harm and destruction. It is time for the Arabs to decide and openly declare what they really want: a Palestinian Arab homeland or the destruction of the Jewish state. I'm Yisrael Chai.
like to invite them up on stage